Welcome back, Focus Learners. Today, we are exploring a truly mind-bending narrative about alternate realities, the terrifying burden of power, and the catastrophic consequences of trying to play God. Let's jump right into an explainer that takes a fantastic premise and pushes it to its absolute, logical, and quite frankly, terrifying limits.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're actually starting our journey today with a bit of an internet mystery. You see, a few years ago, a user on the Sci-Fi Stack Exchange forum was desperately trying to remember a story they'd seen back in the 1990s. They recalled a very specific, bizarre set of details. They were looking for a story about a man whose dreams literally alter reality, a psychiatrist who uses the hypnosis code word Antwerp, and this really surreal twist where the man dreams of ending racial tension, only to wake up and find that everyone in the world has had their skin turned a uniform shade of gray. I mean, it sounds like a complete fever dream, right?
While the forum quickly provided the answer, this unforgettable internet query was actually describing a 1971 science fiction masterpiece called The Lathe of Heaven, written by the legendary Ursula K. Le Guin. And let me tell you, this isn't just your standard quirky sci-fi tale. It's a profound exploration of the sheer danger of forcefully molding human society into a supposed utopia. It essentially asks us to consider what happens when our deepest desires for a perfect world are taken perfectly, brutally, literally.
Section 1. The Effective Dreamer.
To really grasp how Le Guin pulls this off, we need to unpack the core sci-fi mechanic driving this incredible plot. The story revolves around a concept called effective dreaming. Our protagonist, a guy named George Orr, possesses this terrifying ability to shift the entire universe with his dreams. When he has an effective dream, he actually changes past and present reality, creating a completely new timeline. And the worst part? Only Orr remembers that things were ever different. The story drops us into a rainy, dystopian version of Portland, Oregon in the year 2002. It's wildly overpopulated, racked by poverty, and George Orr is actively abusing prescription drugs just to stop himself from dreaming and accidentally reshaping reality all over again.
Now, because of his drug abuse, Orr is forced into mandated psychological therapy with a Dr. William Haber. And right here, we have a perfect clash of characters. Orr is a simple draftsman. He's highly passive and utterly terrified of his own power. Dr. Haber, on the other hand, is an ambitious, highly extroverted psychiatrist. Well, Haber soon witnesses reality shift right in his own office and realizes, hey, Orr isn't crazy. But instead of curing Orr, Haber invents a biofeedback EEG machine called the Augmenter. His goal? To harness Orr's effective dreams and use them to forcibly control and fix reality.
Section 2. Escalating Utopian Disasters.
And this brilliantly illustrates what happens when you give an ambitious psychiatrist the power to redesign the universe. Things are absolutely bound to go off the rails. We get to see a cascading series of horrifying failures to Dr. Haber's seemingly logical solutions. Haber uses the Augmenter to command Orr's subconscious to fix the world. First, he asks for an end to overpopulation. Orr dreams, and they wake up in a timeline where a massive plague previously wiped out 3/4 of humanity. I mean, problem solved, right? Next, Haber demands peace on Earth. Orr dreams, and humanity is suddenly united because aliens have invaded the moon, giving us a common enemy. And then, exactly as that Stack Exchange user remembered, Haber demands an end to racism, which results in a timeline where every single human being's skin is a uniform shade of gray, effectively erasing vast swaths of history and culture overnight.
But wait, because the narrative holds an even darker secret. Midway through the story, we get a massive plot twist. Orr reveals to his lawyer that this entire timeline, the rainy Portland, Haber, all of it is itself an effective dream. In April 1998, the world was actually destroyed in a nuclear war. Orr, lying dying in the radioactive ruins, desperately dreamt of a world where the war never happened. He dreamt this entire flawed baseline reality into existence just to survive. It completely, totally shifts your perspective on everything you've read up to that point.
Section 3. The Philosophy of Dreaming.
With that staggering revelation in mind, let's pull back the curtain to reveal the heavy, philosophical machinery Le Guin is operating underneath the sci-fi plot. The conflict between Orr and Haber isn't just about a patient and a doctor, it's a fundamental clash of philosophies. Le Guin uses George Orr to represent Taoism. He embodies passive acceptance, letting things be, and maintaining a natural equilibrium. Dr. Haber, conversely, represents positivism, behaviorism, and specifically forceful utilitarian meddling. As neutral observers, it is fascinating to see how meticulously the text uses these characters to critique the famous utilitarian phrase, prioritizing the greatest happiness for the greatest number.
So, the crucial point here is that Dr. Haber's confident, extroverted pursuit of a perfect world is deeply flawed. The novel shows how Haber's philosophy leads directly to the paternalistic dismissal of Orr's basic civil rights. It even explores how utilitarian ethics, when pushed to an absolute extreme, might promote eugenics, creating a timeline where citizens are literally euthanized for being considered a threat to the gene pool. Ultimately, Haber's unchecked will to power drives him entirely mad. When he attempts to use the augmenter to dream effectively himself, without Orr's natural grounding, he threatens to dissolve reality entirely into undifferentiated chaos.
Section 4. A Lost Translation.
Now, shifting gears for a moment beyond the heavy philosophy, this explainer wouldn't be complete without uncovering some highly entertaining behind-the-scenes trivia. Take its epic title, The Lathe of Heaven. It actually comes from an epigraph Le Guin used in Chapter 3, quoting the ancient Chinese philosopher Chuang Tzu as translated by James Legge. The quote reads, "To let understanding stop at what cannot be understood is a high attainment. Those who cannot do it will be destroyed on the lathe of heaven." It evokes this incredibly powerful image of the universe as a giant mechanical shaping tool that will literally shave you down to nothing if you resist its natural rotation.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that quote is completely wrong. Yep, Le Guin later found out from the great scholar Joseph Needham that James Legge's translation was wildly off the mark. Why? Well, simply because the lathe hadn't even been invented in China when Chuang Tzu was writing. Le Guin noted in an interview that Needham wrote to her in a very kind, gentle, unreproachful way to point this out. The actual Chinese concept translates much closer to heavenly equilibrium, but Le Guin admitted she just loved the sound of the mistranslation way too much to change it.
So, because the title is based on a localized English mistranslation, international publishers had a really tough time figuring out how to handle this tricky title for their own audiences. In Germany, and initially in Portugal, they leaned hard into the punishment aspect, calling it the scourge or the whip of heaven. Meanwhile, in France and Sweden, they focused a bit more on the sci-fi mechanic, titling it The Other Side of the Dream. It's just a fascinating look at how a single serendipitous mistake can ripple out into a huge variety of names for the exact same novel.
Section 5. Legacy on Screen.
So, how did this story make its way into the cultural zeitgeist? Well, the book was immediately recognized as a triumph. Sci-fi legend Philip K. Dick, a writer who is very famous for his own stories about shifting, psychologically derived realities, offered it massive praise. He called it one of the best novels and most important to understanding of the nature of our world. And that makes perfect sense, as Le Guin's deep dive into alternate realities is widely considered a clear, loving homage to Dick's own incredible explorations from the 1960s.
To summarize its success, The Lathe of Heaven took home the 1972 Locus Award and was a finalist for both the prestigious Hugo and Nebula Awards. It also spawned two major television adaptations. The first one, produced in 1980 by PBS, was highly faithful to the book. Le Guin herself was heavily involved in it, and despite a tiny budget of just $250,000, it became the most requested program in PBS history. Though, hilariously, it practically disappeared for years due to a broadcasting rights issue over a snippet of a Beatles song used in the soundtrack. Later, in 2002, A&E produced a remake, but it discarded major plot points, and Le Guin had zero involvement. So if you're going to watch one, definitely seek out the 1980 version.
The true genius of the source material we've explored today is how it forces us to look in the mirror. George Orr's terrifying journey through shifting realities reminds us that a utopia forced into existence by a single human mind will always carry the flaws, biases, and blind spots of its creator. So taking everything we've learned from this explainer today, I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. If you had the power to dream a perfect world, knowing all the disastrous monkey's paw consequences that might follow, would you dare to close your eyes?